Hey, it's Lee. Welcome to Business Problem Solved. Today, I have the immense pleasure of chatting with somebody I first met a few years ago now, as a client of his, and we've kept in touch ever since. And there is a lot of stuff that I want to pick his brains about today. So, Tommy, Mr. Video Testimonial Man, how the devil are you, sir?
I'm in good spirits. What can I say?
Yeah, good, good. Well, hopefully you will say a lot during this conversation because, like I said, I've got a number of questions I want to ask you. But first, for those people who don't know who Tommy is, who is he and how did he get to sit in that seat today?
I'm from Leeds originally, and the chair I'm in, well, who is he? I don't know. That's a very broad question. I could go down some rabbit holes there, but I'm from Leeds originally. I've travelled about a bit. I ended up on Gozo Island, Malta, which is where this chair is right now. And this is where I am compared to Leeds, where I was a good few years ago. So there you have it.
Amazing, amazing. So how does somebody go from Leeds to Malta?
Again, a long story, but I'll entertain you with it if you've got all year.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. Yeah, perfect.
So excuse me, I'll just shift this along a bit, put it back where it was. My great grandfather was sick during the First World War because he was next to a dead soldier for too long, if I'm not mistaken. He got sent to Malta to recover. He had a great time, swam in the sea, when there weren't so many boats threatening to cut your head off. And he went back to his wife and he says, we should move there. And she said, no. So that history, that timeline in history was diverted. But he told my dad loads of stories about the place. My grandfather was here with the RAF after World War II, but he didn't really talk about it that much. He had a very
Yeah.
difficult time. And my father, having heard so many stories about this place, took us as kids. We were in there, doing what people do on holiday in a hot country. And every night we went to a bar and a captain of a boat would walk in and he would say, come on my boat, I'll do a tour. Every night he'd ask. They never got round to saying yeah. And 2 nights before we left, they caved in, my parents. Went out on the boat, this captain, Captain Birdseye style guy, big beard, big belly, laughing all the time. Drove us around the caves. Absolutely beautiful. There is nothing like, Camino and that part of the Mediterranean and that colour of the sea. And me and my sisters would spend like 4 hours most of the afternoon just climbing on the top of his boat and jumping off it and repeating. And he said to my family, you want to come back, you don't pay, or at least the kids don't. And we didn't get to do it. So we went home. My mother passed away sadly 6 years later. And every family will have one holiday they talk about. We've been on many, we were lucky, but we kept talking about Malta. So many years later, I was, occasionally if I could find 10 quid, I'd buy a 10 quid flight. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at that point, I couldn't. I was that broke, but I was looking at Skyscanner anyway, and I found that they had flights for like 15 quid to Malta, and I'd not been since I was a kid. It had this kind of mythical thing in my memory. So my friend overheard me talk about it and says, I'll buy the bloody tickets. We actually managed to get accommodation for 2 people for 4 days, including the flights, for about £130 or something stupid. These
Wow.
were these were flats that were big enough for 6 people to be in. And so I went there, managed to piss them off by going to a B&I meeting on the other island. We were in Gozo, the small one. So I was doing a 6-hour round trip to go to this meeting and back, but it changed my life because when I was there, I met somebody who was substituting for somebody else and he ran an SEO company. And he says, video testimonials, that could be interesting. And, I give him a card and thought, well, yeah, or whatever. You know what I mean? That's what you do. You swap cards. You forget about it. 2 months later, he says, when are you coming back? I says, what? And by coincidence, one of my friends had bought me a £70 voucher for Ryanair flights. And so I used it to go to Malta and do that job because I still had
Wow.
not a great amount of money. Flew to Malta, did that job. I actually had a meeting that morning at Horsforth Golf Club in Leeds and took a taxi. 10 minutes later, I was on the plane. And then 30 minutes after landing, I was in the client of the client's office doing this video testimonial. A lot of pressure because he changed his flight to accommodate me. It went fine. Got it filmed. Did a few more people. Thought, well, Brexit's coming. It's not looking good. I'll leave the jury to decide how that turned out. And, I kept coming back. thinking maybe I can do a post-Brexit market here. Ironically, nearly 99% of my clients are not in Malta, and I kept coming back and forth for ages, maybe 8 weeks out of every year, spread out. I ended up in 2020 doing a short film with a friend who wanted to go and see the place. So I was the cameraman. Next month I was coming to like a visitors day meeting for their local B&I chapter or B&I group. And the month after that, COVID. So I couldn't go anywhere. My friends, 3 months later, once we could leave our houses and wander about a little bit, said to me, sorry, a bit of context. I stayed in various hostels and made a few friends on the way there. And the friend of one of the hostel owners said, who I'd got to know for a while, she said, why don't you stay with me and my boyfriend? We've got a spare room, for a bit. Just give us expenses. Again, that changed the course of my life. Very generous. I was there for a month. 1 month became almost 2. I go back for tax reasons, not to get in trouble or anything. I had a great summer. And during that 10 days of isolation, I saw something on TV constantly that horrified me. And it was Boris Johnson's face, and Matt Hancock saying, it's all going to be fine, lads. Just go and do your thing. Go out and have a good time. And, this is me, who had already seen Leeds fans in the middle of COVID celebrating, and getting drunk in the middle of a square. So I'm thinking, I don't know if he's right about that. I'm not sure. Someone tells me. Got on a plane as soon as I could. I thought it was risking it taking a week to go, not 2 days. I left with a backpack of clothes, a phone, and a laptop. And, before long, I'd broken the phone. So I ended up in Malta, kind of like staying in hostels for a bit until I could find somewhere a little bit more stable to stay, and here I am.
Wow.
And in the meantime, sorry, all my work went remote because before I was running around filming people in person. You couldn't do that during a pandemic when it was pretty bad. So I had to switch the business around and make it do remotely. The thing that really surprised me was that people didn't really care that I wasn't turning up with a camera in their house.
Yeah.
As long as they could hear somebody clearly and see them clearly, what they cared about was the information in their head and what was coming out of their mouths.
Yeah. No, it absolutely makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. That's kind of how you got to, that is how you got to Malta and where you sit today. And you've touched upon video testimonials, and they were in person and now they are remote. How did you get into video testimonials, and when did you realize the importance of the video testimonial?
Sorry, how did I realize the importance of the video testimonial?
Yeah, how did you get into it? When did you realize that like video testimonials was the thing for Tommi and that people needed them so much?
I was doing a job for my first client really as a videographer, and it wasn't going really well because every time I had him over to speak what he had to say on camera, he would want to write his own lines last minute, and he could never remember them. And I was coming up from Huddersfield to do this, so I was having to write off several, trips up and down, and he'd already agreed the amount, so we couldn't, change it around. So it wasn't going well. What was going well was when I visited his clients with him to film him doing his work, which was social media, so he was taking pictures for his clients, he was taking video footage, he was chatting with them, and I was videoing him doing that and, using that for like a promotional tool. And I knew his client, or one of them, I knew one of his clients fairly well, to the point where we could be mates, and we could all be honest with each other and make fun of each other a bit. So we're all having a cup of tea in this guy's office. He sold water coolers, or he maintained them. And I said to him, why did you hire this guy? For a laugh. And he started stroking his chin like Ming the Merciless. And I thought, without thinking, I hit the button on record and put the camera on my shoulder. And he says, well, at first, I didn't really want to use him because I wanted to do it all myself. I've got a certain language that I like. And I in the end, I couldn't do it all myself because I had vans to look after and maintain, and make sure they were going on their way to the right places, and staff and other things. So I gave him a trial. And what I noticed was that after a short amount of time, the way he wrote sounded like the way I talked, and I liked that. And I stopped recording after that. I got a phone call a month later saying, Tommy, where's that thing where he's saying all the nice stuff about me? I go, well, I wasn't using that, so I binned it. And he starts freaking out. Like, where's this thing? No, that's what I wanted. I really wanted that. And I go, that was a casual recording. No, I want it. Right. And I managed to dig it out. I had one copy that wasn't thrown away because I backed things up a few times. And I gave it to him. He stuck it on his website straight away, and the light bulb went off. If he cares about something that had absolutely next to zero production value, just a talking head, and it was about nice things that were being said about him, why am I worrying about saving up money to buy expensive camera equipment?
Yeah.
And I tested that theory on, a local accountant's in Yorkshire. I tested it I tested it on an accountant's in Hebden Bridge. I went around and filmed some of their clients. I did it for free, and they were so happy with what they heard that they insisted on giving me 100 quid. And at the time, I'm going, wow, I filmed 6 people and I got 100 quid. I'm so happy. Somebody gave me money I didn't expect. So at that point, I went to a local B&I chapter, and somebody said, oh, wait a minute, so you don't film me, you film my client. I don't have to be on camera. Hey, I'll give you some money. It was like, and that's when the penny drops. I really should make a business of this.
Yeah.
And ironically, I do
sense.
film the business owner now sometimes, but the core is still testimonials, and people wanted it because they didn't have to be on camera and because they were getting validated. From a business point and an ego point of view, that's not a bad thing.
No, absolutely. And I guess just talking video testimonial, what is it that makes a great video testimonial?
A great testimonial talks about real results, not abstract ones that are kind of all feel good but no substance. So I got so many leads, I got so many signups, I got my time back, my stress levels are down, my family are saying I'm easier to get along with, my staff are not leaving, or we're hiring more of the staff we want, things that you can really see in concrete terms. In the long term, the only time that I'd really care for a short-term testimonial is where a short-term immediate problem that needed solving desperately has been solved. That could be, I need to go somewhere nice on holiday, and that's when they remember the substance of things a lot clearer. Long-term, they might not, because it's not about long-term impact in those cases. Or, they have had a nightmare fire at work that needs putting out, and they remember all the details about how the fire was put out and how relieved they are. They might not remember that quite as much in the long run, but most of the time, good testimonials need long-term results that you can easily get across in ways that you can picture.
Yeah. And I guess to achieve that, then I get part of your artistry is in the questions that you ask to expose and explore the thoughts and the imagination of the people that's in front of you. What kind of questions do you ask, and how do you tap into those memories to create the video testimonials you do?
It helps if you ask the kind of questions. It helps if you want good testimonials, it helps to ask the kind of questions that make people feel like they can be open with you, that they're in a safe space, that it's not just a yes or no answer, and that you genuinely care about what they have to say. You're inviting them to share their feelings. That's why a lot of questions that work well use the word feel. Ones that get them to open up and share their thoughts and, make it feel like they're not being pressured to say things that are going to make you, the business owner, happy, or are going to sell a company. That doesn't work.
Yeah. How do you make somebody feel safe? Because I guess what and the reason why I'm asking this question is because in every business we want everybody to feel safe and that they can contribute their thoughts, their ideas, the thoughts and their ideas every single day. And what you do in a really short period of time is you get people to share how they feel, their feelings, without knowing them before? How do you create that safe space?
First, you tell them, if you want to make a safe space for people where they can be open with you, you tell them that there's no agenda to begin with, that they are not expected to sell on behalf of the business owner that they're representing, or that they are not meant to, before, they don't have to say things that make that person happy. You tell them that before. When I turn up to that recording, I don't wear this shirt and tie thing. That's just kind of a thing from watching the Beastie Boys and Joy Division and too many kitchen sink movies with Albert Finney and the likes. And who was that other one? I can't remember now. Richard Harris, right? I dress down. I wear a hoodie. I come across slightly lackadaisical. Like, I'm just going to ask you some questions here. I'm not really that formal. As long as I can understand it, I'll use my broadest Yorkshire. Not BBC interview style. Do you know what I mean? Not like we're trying to get gotcha moments. We're just trying to, it's their opinion. What do you think about it? Oh, really? I don't talk that fast either. I talk slow, relaxed. Your tone of voice will reflect how they feel. If you give an energy of urgency and stress, they will feel urgent and stressed. And they won't be too candid when they're under those kind of conditions.
Yeah. What's your favourite question to ask?
There's many, and I don't have a favourite. I'll give you a couple of good ones. You can ask them, a good question to ask would be, if you go back to where things were, when you first met my client or me, if you're the person doing the interviewing, how did you feel about things at that time? And now that we've come on this journey all the way and we've got to where we are now, how do you feel it all turned out? Because that does two things. One, it takes them back to the nightmare that they were in, puts them in that kind of horror position, right? And then they go on that journey mentally, of how it turned out. The situation's been resolved. The stress is over. They're happy, right? They don't even have to say that you are the cause of it, because the fact they're showing such happy feelings about where they are is, by association, going to be credited to you to a large degree anyway. But the changes on their face, you can see it visibly. That's a good one to ask. I often ask a question underneath the initial response. I often ask a question underneath the surface response. So I got, an extra 200 quid. Great. What did you do with it? Right? Oh, I had a nice restaurant meal. Do you know what I mean? And took the kids out to Flamingo Land. Great. How did that feel? Oh, it was great. It was the first night out. I feel great. It was the first night out I had in ages. Do you know what I mean? First occasion I got to spend some fun time with my family for a long while. There's always something about 3 or 4 layers deeper than there's always.
Yeah, I love this. I love it. It resonates so much with leadership, with coaching, because what you are doing here is you're tapping into the emotions of the person and trying to get them to articulate it on an emotional level. When did you realize emotions were so important?
Watching Blade Runner. That's kind of a joke answer, but actually there's a certain amount of truth in it. What was that scene where he, really early on, where they're doing the interview, the Voight Kampf test, and they're trying to find out who's a replicant and who is a real human. And they ask all these questions that kind of like abstracts, or not like, where is your house? What's your address? Open questions. I wouldn't ask questions that were so abstract in a real life setting, but it's a good film to reference. When did I realize? To give you a bit of background, you know me, I have Asperger's. I probably mentioned it a few times. So I used to get my head kicked in at high school. I was isolated, even at college, and into my 20s. I was living alone, looking at the ceiling. I couldn't even put the TV on. I couldn't be bothered. I was that fed up. And I couldn't, despite all my efforts, find a group of friends to hang around with. It was that depressing. And it came down largely to my social skills being non-existent. I couldn't read people. They couldn't read me. And they would often laugh behind my back. They'd be friendly to my face, but they'd laugh behind my back, or they'd insult me, when I wasn't looking. And that was because I could never understand the consequences of what I was saying or what they were saying, but not out loud. what they were saying with their eyes rather than their mouths. And so somebody at some point in my early 20s said to me, you never quite, somebody in my early 20s said to me, you never look people in the eye. And if I wasn't your friend, I'd find it a little bit off-putting. And after hearing that, I thought, God, they're right. And I got obsessed with reading faces, body language, voice tonality to see if I tripped anybody up. I was going not long after that to the Cannes Film Festival every year and doing film networking events. So rather than try to, do all the talking, I try to get people to stick around for longer rather than get bored and leave. Because I couldn't keep up talking for so long and staying interesting. I was usually the person that rambled with a dull story. Sometimes I still do. So I try to tap into the one thing that especially film people and acting people love to do, which is talk about themselves. So I'd say, all right, so why did you become an actor? And they liked that story, they liked being able to tell that story. And by asking them lots of questions about themselves, I realized that they would, I often trip up my words here, but I found that I found the way to get people to stick around and feel like they wanted to hang around. Yeah. I found out that the trick to getting people to hang around longer with you was to get them to open up and feel like they were the ones who had the spotlight.
Yeah.
If you look at anybody on reality TV, they have no problem talking because they're being asked their opinion. So all I had to do was get them to open up, and asking questions that did more of that rather than yes or no questions was the way to go about things. Get asking questions that let them tell their story, because they could imagine themselves on Parkinson, God rest him, sharing all that stuff, putting the spotlight on them and asking stuff that wasn't too invasive, unless it was called for, unless they wanted me to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was how I learned to do it. So when I ended up doing corporate or business video stuff, it was a skill that I'd learned to thrive, but it helped me to survive.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
No,
let me rephrase it.
absolutely.
I've got that the wrong way around. When I ended up doing business videos, that skill that I'd learned to survive helped me to thrive in that world.
Yes. Perfect. Perfect. No, it's such a powerful lesson and so transferable into like every conversation. I often say that the most important thing is that so in the world of business change, it's really important because we get trained in tools and techniques and methods and things, and because we're trained in those things, often we lead with those things and we go, oh, you just need to use this tool or you just need to do that thing, and what we don't necessarily do is, or what a lot of people don't do, is lead with connection, lead with understanding the person, understanding their perspective, understanding their experience, understanding who they are, because then you can then introduce a tool when you know the person, because you know the journey that they've been on, and you can deliver it in a way that's understandable and resonates with that person. So when I'm hearing you speak, Tommy, it's all about the person. It's all about building connection. And when you spoke about creating a safe space, it's about making that person feel comfortable to be able to share. And you do that through your questions. You do that through the way that you spoke slower, you dress down, make them feel more comfortable, demonstrate vulnerability. So there's loads of things. It's not just about creating a video. It's not just about a video test. It's about how you deal with people. I think it's really, 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 really powerful. So I think, well, thank you for sharing that, if I'm honest, because I think there's so much in that that's transferable to every single occupation and walk of life. How do you, when you finish recording a video, do you know whether it's going to be a good one or not?
I've got to the point where I know that everybody will be happy at the end. What I never know is how happy, unless there is maybe a certain couple of statements where you just go, oh God, wait till they hear that. But, I did one the other day, and I did one video recently where I thought, oh, that went all right. Do you know what I mean? There was a couple of nice things in there, not one of my better ones necessarily, But when I edited it, and this is the thing, sometimes we see it only in the context of the entire conversation. But when I looked at that, but when I went through the footage and chopped out what wasn't needed and got to the core of it, I got to the golden nuggets and stacked them up against each other. I thought, bloody hell, this ain't bad. But at the time I didn't see it because you're having a longer conversation. So it's only when you whittle down the stuff and you look at it like, up together with the best stuff kind of next to each other. I often go, that's not bad, that. And, when you share it to the client, they're going to be happy.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're talking, you make me think. So one of my favourite quotes is a Maya Angelou one out. It goes something along the lines of, people forget what you said, forget what you did, but never forget how you made them feel. And throughout your whole process, it is about making people feel something, whether it's getting them to feel how they did it when they were in the situation, whether it's getting them to feel about how they feel now about the situation when they've overcome it, getting them to feel when they see your video that you've created for them, and that's both the people that have been on the video and also the people that are the clients of yours as well that you're producing the video for. It's all about feelings. Feelings are coming out so strongly in this conversation and the importance in the importance of them, and that for me is such a powerful lesson for people to take away. How do you feel about doing what you do?
I feel like I'm the person behind the scenes, facilitating the work of others. I'm not the headline grabber, but it's nice to have a hand in people who are doing really cool, amazing things and playing a role in that. Somebody says, what are you going to leave behind? What's your great big legacy and all that? And I think, well, helping other people leave legacies. I like that. Maybe legacy is a strong word, but I'm facilitating the impact of others so they can go off and do their thing and more of it and not burn themselves doing it, with people that don't respect them. So it's nice to play an important role in good people's success that is going to impact on other good people and keep rippling. Because, for example, you change leadership. Have I got the term right? You do change leadership, and I interviewed your clients, so I know this fully well. And they came out of that experience like having not just a better time at work, but a better life out of it. And that ripples into the other people in their world, their partners, their kids, their friends, because what they've learned, they're not just applying it at work, they're applying it elsewhere. So the effect that you've had has rippled out on a lot more people than just the individuals you worked with. And that's what's really nice about it. So I'm in the background facilitating more of that. I'm not the famous face of it, but to be honest, I won't want to be. I like a quiet life. I like good relationships with people who are doing good things.
Yeah. Yeah. How does that make you feel?
That's you mean, how does it make me feel playing a role in other people's success?
Yeah.
Good. I've been a bum and a layabout for a lot of my life. So it's nice to do something useful.
Yeah. And you are absolutely making an impact with the videos, but your approach is so human, it's so people centric, and it's all about connection and relationships. One thing that really resonates with me about what you do, Tommi, so we did a piece of work a few years ago now, but you have kept in touch more often than I've kept in touch with you, because and it's just your level of connection is just an importance of that, and people getting the value and maximizing it is an absolute testament and a credit to you, and the importance of fostering strong relationships. Is that something that you've always done?
I can tell you a couple of things from that. So the first is, one of the most frustrating things I had to deal with early on, and occasionally, we all still have to deal with it every now and then, is people pay for something and they don't use it. That personally feels like it reflects badly on us. So I have to make sure that they're using it. And a lot of people got what I did for a reduced rate, and then they didn't go out and use it. So I had to put my prices up just so people took action, because it hurt them, a little bit to pay that money. The bearing on, because I sometimes lose track of where I am, and I'll get back to it. Damn it. Yeah, connection. And I found out early on, but I didn't act on it soon enough, that accountability is huge. You know, I'm providing a tool, and no matter how good the tool is, if they're not using it, something's wrong. And what I noticed was that a lot of the people I worked with, especially early on, but even now, every so often, they're, they're doing a lot themselves, right? So they're getting distracted by this, that, or whatever. And marketing or promotion or sales is usually one of the things that kind of gets pushed to the back while you're dealing with work. When it usually gets pushed to the back when you're dealing, it usually gets pushed to the back when you're dealing with a daily grind of business. But when the job finishes, where's the work coming from? Do you know what I mean? And that bothered me. So I have to hold people to account. I'm always working on better ways to do that and to do it more quickly for their sake as much as mine. So that's the first thing. People who don't use the thing that they paid you for will trash your brand. And I don't want my brand trashed. So I want people who are going to do I want people who are going to use what they're paying for. But also I want them to see, I want people to do well. I've been in some early situations where people paid for a really good testimonial video. They didn't use it. They had other things going on, and they're still the same. They're still at the same. They've got a couple of clients, and that's it, because they weren't using it. And I had to make sure I was getting people on board that could use it. And there's a lot to do. There's not just stick it on your website and forget about it. There's actually only when you get a testimonial video, only part of the journey is done. Halfway there, the rest is making sure it's used constantly. Put it out there once, great. 3 months later, put it out there again on your social channels. All of them, What have you done with the transcript of those videos? Is your network sharing those videos? Are your suppliers sharing those videos? A lot of people forget the suppliers, because they're paying you. Oh, sorry, let me rephrase that. A lot of people forget the suppliers who are depending on you for money. So why shouldn't they be invested in helping your business? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that, and I guess it comes down to a degree of scale versus, standards. And I'm more of a standards person. The person who introduced us, Bev Wills, took me aside a long time ago. Bev Wills, who introduced us, took us aside years ago. And he says, I like what you're doing. Bear in mind that you've got to focus on flair. You've got to focus on something that puts you above the pound shop people. Not in those exact words, but you know what I mean? And that really stuck with me. And so ever since, and it was probably part of the process, I have made a point of doing more than other people do. And if it should be in the service, priced in, then it will be. If it's just a little peripheral on top, fair enough. I'll include it anyway, because I'm always trying to make sure that what I'm delivering is the flair, not the cheap and cheerful bargain hunter stuff, or the stuff that could be replaced easily by AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really important.
And in terms of connection, like, I'm a relationship focused person. I don't want to be hunting for referrals all the time. I don't want clients who kind of just go, here's your change, bugger off. I don't do vending machine service, right? I do ongoing support. I like to stay in touch with clients. I consider once they pay me that I'm part of their journey, and I need to make sure that that journey is a successful one. So you've always got to be checking in. And what you find is there's always more than one problem to solve. It's never a silver bullet. What else do we need to fix? It might not be my services. 9 times out of 10, it'll be someone else's services. Or 9 times out of 10, it'll be just a conversation that needs having, like we've had before. And, what people don't want is somebody like, for example, what people don't want is a laser on them, like the Terminator would put on them. Now, I've got that wrong. What people don't want to feel like is a cash machine. Sorry, what people don't want to feel like is somebody's ATM.
Yeah.
Right? They show up when they want money. That's it. Give me some money later, or when they want a favor. Right? That is not the way to get great referrals. It's not the way to get clients buying more from you. It's not the way to enjoy working with your clients, because if all you're doing is showing up if all you're doing is showing up when you want money, then you're going to have a very transactional, depressing relationship with the people you work with. I don't enjoy that.
Yeah, yeah, really powerful, really important, really important. We spoke about video testimonials a lot today. What would be if somebody has a video testimonial or a testimonial, what's your top 5 tips for maximizing the value of that testimonial?
So if somebody already has a testimonial and they want to get more out of it, first I would insist that all clients and suppliers and people who are meant to support you in business know where to find that testimonial and know that they should be sharing that rather than talking too much about your business. Anywhere, I would also tell them to put it anywhere that people can find you. If you're doing webinars and trainings, I would put it in the Zoom room before people, if I was doing webinars and trainings, I'd put it in the waiting room before people even join, because some people are keen on, watching these things while they're waiting. I'm trying to think of a couple of others off the top of my head, because I'm never great when I've been asked a direct question in the moment, as you can imagine. So give me a moment. I would ask people if they've seen your video testimonial when they first encounter you, if they're coming on a sales call, because sometimes they haven't. And that might change the conversation. A lot of people forget that testimonials save time qualifying clients or clients trying to qualify you. Once they know that you're the business, they won't mess around so quickly, or you won't get messed around by them. You can ask them in advance to answer certain questions that qualify them before they get on the call. And that way you can spend less time working with people that were never a good fit. But they're more willing to do that if you've got good video testimonials to prove that you are the expert. And what's the last one I can throw in there? I would say one thing that people don't do enough is reuse the entire interview. So when you do a video testimonial, when you make a video testimonial, usually you cut out what you want and you throw away the rest, right? For the main, 1 minute of highlights. Use the rest of it. Get a transcript of the whole interview, throw that into ChatGPT. Million things that can be done with that. Segment the quotes, use it to highlight what people like about your business. And then for the video footage, there are lots of clips that can be found that might not have been suitable for the main video because they're talking about things that you don't want to focus on for that, or that they talked about it for too long on one point and you can't really fit that into a highlights reel, but you can still use it and put it out there every now and then. So don't throw away the stuff.
Yeah, amazing. No, thank you so much for that, Tommy. And just a few more, quick fire questions.
Sure.
You've made a few film references during this conversation so far. What is your favourite film and why?
It's always been Trainspotting. My parents hated that film with a vengeance, and they hadn't seen it, I should add. Who didn't like Trainspotting when it came out? It was quite a rebellious movie. I think the time I was hooked was before I even saw the whole thing. It was just a clip during Good Morning, or whatever it was they had on. Probably a bit too early for Trainspotting, maybe. And it was a clip where he was describing the stages of withdrawal. And he was narrating the scene like it was kind of just some self-help manual sort of thing where you were, building a computer, except he was locking himself away to wean himself off heroin. And he was describing the various buckets that he would use to deposit disgusting, stuff that came as a result from that. And I just thought, that's a level of sarcasm and dodgy humor I've not heard for a while, but done in a very clever way. And I was hooked.
Amazing. Hey, good. 2 more questions. What does a Yorkshireman who's moved to Malta, who is a video testimonial creating legend, have for his tea?
Curry. A lot of the time. It's the only thing I can cook really well. My mum was half Asian. A lot of my family will cook when I get home. I walked in to see one relative I'd not seen for ages. I didn't even announce I was coming. And they just says, I don't know how you knew, but the curry's already ready. And it was like,
Amazing.
Yeah, I'll sit down for that. Every member of my family has a certain style of cooking curry. So we pretty much grew up on it. When, I'm here, I don't really eat as much meat. So I'll cook a lot of potatoes, which is ironically typically Irish, relates probably the Irish side of my family. But I'm usually making curry, so that's usually what I'm having at home.
What do you like it?
Not so hot I can't taste it, but I
Yeah.
can handle it with a certain level of heat.
Yeah, no, perfect. Perfect. And final question, Tommy, is if people wanted to know more about you, what you do, they're interested in a video testimonial, where would they go? What would they do? What would they find?
Look for me on LinkedIn. My name's a Google whack. You're not going to find many of them, if any, and my testimonials are on there. You can check out
Perfect.
what I know there.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. So I just want to say, Tommy, thank you so much for your honesty today. Your just sharing your journey, your story, your top tips, and also just the importance of feelings, the importance of safe environments, and the importance of just the human side of what you do. Good luck with everything you've got going on, and I cannot wait to chat to you again, young man.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on here. I always enjoy talking with you.